up until 1900, morality principles and the teachings were like this, science was teaching like this, like we've heard. But he said, no, don't sublimate or restrain. He said that by restraining your desires, then you get psychosis. He tried to make, he's not a scientist per se, but he tried to make some psychoanalysis, he invented a psychoanalysis, and he tried to say that if you restrict yourself from doing something that you want to do, some desire, then you'll have nervous problems, psychological problems. But he based it on his theory that is very bizarre. The quote is not here, but somehow they got mixed up. He said when he was a child he felt lust towards his mother, and he assumed that all children feel lust towards their parents. And he based everything on that. And he said that therefore sexual activity should not be restricted at all. Or he wasn't that liberal, but he was quite liberal, and as you can see, read his quote here.
Good. And now the main thing, as far as I can see, my next work will be called Human Bisexuality. It will go to the root of the problem and say the last word it may be granted to say, the last and the most profound.
This was his ultimate contribution. Yes, he was recommending sex should not be restricted. He was a completely atheist. Didn't believe in religion. He thought religion was, too restrictive. So this is somehow or other, with Freud's so-called pseudo-scientific presentation, it became accepted, and people took advantage of it. Well, this is scientific, so we shouldn't restrict our desires.
Freud. The excessive excitation.
Next. Now this is Jung. Jung was one of Freud's students, but he didn't agree with Freud.
No. Freud never asked himself why he was compelled to talk constantly of sex, why this idea had taken such possession of him. He remained unaware that his monotony of interpretation expressed a flight from himself, or from that other side of him which might perhaps be called mystical. So long as he refused to acknowledge that side, that is the mystical side, he could never be reconciled with himself.
Okay, thanks. I'd like you to keep reading these. I'm going to be back in a few minutes, and then we'll take questions, okay?
Can I
see the last one? These are the last one.
Yes.
Celibacy experiment. One of the most extensive and careful nutritional experiments in modern times on the influence of diet on human vitality, including sexual behavior, was conducted at the Boston Nutrition Laboratory of the Carnegie Institute of Washington, located under the direction of Dr. Francis G. Benedict, the noted nutritionist. The result of this experiment have been published under the title Human Vitality and Efficiency Under Prolonged Restricted Diet.
questions or points of discussion? Oh, that was an important one. The connection, we'll just end on this point, if you can go back to the last one. The relationship between diet and this strong sexual desire, there is a connection. Of course, Vedically we learn all these things from there. Can you read this?
One of the most extensive and careful nutritional experiments in modern times on the influence of diet on human vitality, including sexual behavior, was conducted at the Boston Nutrition Laboratory of the Carnegie Institute of Washington, located under the direction of Dr. Francis G. Benedict, the noted nutritionist.
Yeah. And what they found was that when they reduced the amount of protein, then the libido reduced. Libido means this strong sex desire. In other words, there's a relationship between the diet and our very rich, strong protein-oriented, especially meat and what to speak of other things, but there's a connection between diet and this strong sex urge. In other words, if one regulates his diet, then that will make it easier to control the sex desire. Okay, so now we can take any questions.
So, my question is, in brahmacharya, say you mentioned all these slides, it increases the brain memory power, this kind of physical aspects. How it's related to spiritual, why?
Well, because it takes good brain to understand the spirit. Like animals, if you try to explain, okay, my dear dogs, you're not the body, you're spirit, soul, there's life after death, you've been through different bodies before, they don't understand any of it. They have brains, but their brains only go to the point of eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. They're very good brains for that. They know where to find the food, they know how to defend, they know where to sleep. But they can't understand spiritual things. But humans can. But the reason humans can is because they have good brains. So the better the brain, it can be used in understanding this transcendental science. So, of course, understanding spiritual things is not exactly physical. It's inherent within the soul. But one can utilize the material. And just like if you have a vehicle, if you're trying to, let's say you want to do some service, you want to organize a program like this. So if you have a car that's reliable and runs properly, it makes it easier. But if your car doesn't work, breaks down, then it makes it difficult. So, in other words, it's not the only factor for spiritual life, but we can use good intelligence and good brain in Krishna service. Why not use it if you can? And if the training, the brahmacharis, the education is from the guru, Gurukul, brahmachari, Gurukule, Vasantanto, Guruvito. He's learning from the guru, is his teacher, so he's remembering that. He can discern, he can understand things carefully. Of course, by chanting Hare Krishna and devotional service, even if one's brain is not strong materially, or even if one is misused, his body hasn't taken good care of it, it can still be overcome by spiritual practice. But if beginning from an early age, if one is complete in all of its aspects. It doesn't just take care of the spiritual, it also takes care of the material. Both. Body, mind, and spirit are all taken care of in Vedic culture. Otherwise, why do we send our children to university and study to develop their brains? Do you want your children to take strong drugs when they're children? No, because you know it'll destroy their brains. Okay, any other? Does that answer your question?
But again, in the Vedic olden times, they marry at young age.
Marry at?
Young age, like a girl or boy. They would marry at very young age.
At young age. Yes, but they wouldn't indulge until maturity. They wouldn't even live together in the Vedic age. The girl would stay at home with her parents until she had reached the age of maturity. Then she could go and live with her husband in his home. That's the system. So there was no child indulgence. And there was strict separation between the boys and the girls. Even Banasura, who was from a Daitya family, he was so strict that his daughter had never even seen a boy. So he was very surprised when he found out that one of the Yadu dynasty princes was living with his daughter. That's another story. But the point is, this separation is a good thing for spiritual culture.
You just mentioned that there were a lot of good philosophers and scientists that went into the celestial path. So why do not people follow them? Why are people in this going anti what are the good things? They're just doing opposite.
Why do people go to the bar? Why do people go to the pornographic outlets? The lower self. And it's encouraged for making money. Everything is allowed. The all-devouring money, the greed and lust. So for greed and lust, we can do all these things, and they're encouraged and allowed. In a Vedic society, these things wouldn't be allowed. They would say, no, you can't, how can you do this? How can you have sex? Just like now they have, formerly in America, there was, when I was young, there was only one place you could have gambling casino. That was Nevada, that was the only state. So Las Vegas and Reno. Then I think Atlantic City. And so there were just a few. Now every city, even small towns like St. Joseph, has its own casinos. Is that a beneficial? Have we made advancement by having more casinos? And more drinking places and more brothels? Is that good for society? No, it's detrimental, but this is the age of Kali. Kali is winning. But the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya can counteract it. The chanting of Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. If we want to counteract the age of Kali, we have to chant regularly.
Maharaj, for one who's previously
came of Krishna conscious movement, and they're instilled by the Western propaganda for increased sex drive and whatever. You mentioned that to like regain kind of like that kind of physical intelligence, you said devotional service and chanting kind of helps it. What other kind of things can help maybe on like physical, practical?
Well, we can physically, practically control ourselves now. In other words, whatever is lost. But at least we can not lose more. In other words, you keep our vital fluids where it's supposed to be. Practice brahmacharya. Brahmacharya is not only for strict celibates, but even for householders. They're only supposed to engage that act for propagation of Krishna conscious children. It's not meant just for fun. It's not its use. It's not its best use. Just for some temporary fun. So you can practice that in Krishna consciousness, because the soul doesn't depend on the body, but still make the body as good a vehicle as possible and act according to Krishna's desires, Krishna's instructions. That's good, then Krishna will be pleased.
Raj, can we say that we talked about the wave of material energy earlier and we're being controlled by? Can we say that material energy is stronger in Kali Yuga?
Well, the modes of ignorance and passion are stronger in Kali Yuga. In other ages there's more goodness. In Satya Yuga it's almost all goodness. Practically no passion or ignorance, but we have mostly passion and ignorance. But the good quality, the one good thing, Kalir Doshani De Rajan Yasti Heka Mahangana Kirtanadeva Krishnasya Mukta Sangha Paramaya. The age of Kali is like an ocean of faults, but there's one good quality, and that is the chanting of Hare Krishna, in the names of Krishna. Very easily delivers one from this material world. So chant Hare Krishna, that's Lord Chaitanya's contribution.
I think I remember reading in the brain game, it was about substance, like lecithin, and I can't remember if it was mentioned in there, but doesn't hot milk help, like help develop those structures? Or that's
Yes, hot milk is nourishing for the brain also. Yes. But it's not if you take 2 tons of hot milk in moderation.
Raj, it really helped me understand, our ideas that we have on things like life. It's coming from somewhere. So like Freud, he really, gave the basis to the conception that people have out there, right? So, but I have this idea that wouldn't someone become disturbed if he's restraining all this stuff?
No, not if he's simply restraining and he has nothing positive to do, then of course, even then he'll have something positive, just even the happiness of being peaceful. But aside from that, and better than that, is if he has Krishna consciousness, then why will he be interested in other words, we're thinking we need these things, but we're not this body. The soul doesn't have sex, because the soul doesn't reproduce. There's no sex in the spiritual world as we know it. There's no reproduction. So this is a material thing. It's a bodily thing to keep the species going. It's a system Krishna arranged, and it comes out of our lust. It's given to us as a kind of you could say a reward and a punishment. It's a reward for those who want to enjoy this so-called love, so-called enjoyment, temporary enjoyment. But it's also punishment because one becomes addicted to it. And it becomes the obstacle, the main obstacle for spiritual life.
In Gita, Krishna says that lust is the eternal enemy. They explain even in the spiritual world there is a chance of being attacked by lust.
No. Kama's not there. But if we have some desire to be separate from Krishna, Krishna bahir mukahana bhogavanchakare, nikatista mayatare japati adare. If there's a subtle desire to be separate from Krishna, to be independent, then it may manifest in that way. And then we come to the material world, Cupid, Kamadev. But we can pray to Sanat Kumara, who comes as Pradumna, Cupid. Sanat Kumara, Vata Kamadeva, please help me overcome this Kama.
Brahmacharya, Ragastha, Manapastha and Sannyasa. Can you explain in this regard how life is?
You can see in those 4 spiritual orders, sex life is restricted. In 3 of them, there's none at all. Only in Grihastha it's allowed for producing Krishna conscious children. That's the Vedic system. That's the godly system. Using sex life for what it's meant for, not what it's not meant for. And using our love is meant for Krishna. We're mistaking love to be lust in the material world. They say, I love you. They write so many songs and so many movies, and the idea is love is fructified in the sex act, but it's not required. In the Vedic marriage, it's not that one indulges in unrestricted sex life. The love is on the spiritual platform. It's meant for Krishna, and we can also have love for Krishna's parts and parcels as devotees of Krishna. So in other words, loving Krishna and loving Krishna's parts and parcels, it goes together. It doesn't have anything to do with sex. There's a misconception. We've been misinformed. It's a great relief, actually. One realizes that this whole business, before I came to Krishna consciousness, I was a singer, and there was one song that I liked. It was called, What Kind of Fool Am I Who Never Fell in Love? It seems that I'm the only one who I have been thinking of. What kind of man is this, an empty shell, a lonely cell in which my empty heart must dwell? Why can't I fall in love like any other man? And maybe then I'll know what kind of fool I am. So that song made sense to me because we try to find love in these temporary relationships in the body, but it's not really there. So he was thinking there was something wrong with it. That's what we're taught. If you're not full of lust, there's something wrong with you. But what he didn't know was the reason you can't fall in love is because we're not this body. And so love between bodies doesn't work. Love is for the soul, between the soul and Krishna. Any other?
Like if you, like between friends and family, so you need to show some love, right? So how do you show love?
Tadati pratganati guyamakyati pritchati bhukte bodhayate chaivasha vidyam pratilakshanam. Loving exchanges between devotees is Tadati, giving gifts, accepting gifts. Pratganati guyamakyati pritchati, revealing one's mind confidentially and hearing them reveal their minds confidentially. Feeding prasadam and accepting prasadam that they present to you. This is love. Everything based around Krishna. In other words, if I love Krishna and you love Krishna and I help you love Krishna and you help me love Krishna, that's love. That's the best relationships are for those, just like between husband and wife. What is the wife doing? She's helping the husband love Krishna. What is the husband doing? He's helping the wife love Krishna. What other function is there? That's the purpose of life. Prema Pamartha Mahan. The ultimate Pumartha, supreme accomplishment or achievement in life is not just dharma, artha, kama, moksha, but it's prema. So anyone who helps you do that, he's your best friend and you love him. And that love is far more rich and long-lasting and tangible than the so-called love. What is love in the material world? Temporary exploitation. I love you as long as you satisfy my senses. And if you don't satisfy my senses, get away. That's not love. Love is eternal. Someone who helps you love Krishna, he's your eternal friend. We're not males, we're not females. These are just bodily dresses we have. So we have to get off this bodily conception of life, thinking I'm a man, I'm a woman. This is self-realization, Atma-Gyan.
Maharaj, do you know that symptoms of prema they exhibit in the body? It's like perspiration and goosebumps. And you can also experiment these symptoms, like if you watch an action movie or something. So how do you know that prema is when...
No, not the same symptoms. When you watch an action movie, that's material reflection.
So how do you make the difference then?
Pure love of Krishna. These are signs of ecstasy, spiritual ecstasies. Sattva. Sattvika. They're not material. We may have fear or standing of the hairs on the end. We're afraid or something like that. But that's not spiritual ecstasy.
So how do we know it's not mental? It's not from mental origin.
What is not mental?
These symptoms that you experience.
We have an experience. When you experience them, your eyes will be flooding with tears of love of Krishna and ecstasy. You'll know. When you're full, when you eat some food, you know you've eaten. No one has to give you a certificate that now you're full. There's a big difference between spiritual and material. numbers are very small and minuscule compared to spiritual ecstasy.
Maharaj, it's like, after learning about this, it's really disturbing because I took a class on like human sexuality like maybe a couple months ago, or last year, and they're teaching everybody that in the university that if you don't have sex in a certain interval or in like a month, a certain average times, then your relationship with your girlfriend or wife or whatever, then there's problems. So then, and my idea back then was like, wow, like this, then I gotta go out and that kind of thing. So it's like really bizarre.
Yes, but we don't see that the world is becoming a better place as a result of all these teachings. More disturbances, more divorces, more insanity, more diseases, more war, more exploitation, more anxiety. The anxiety level is abortion a nice thing? Is that natural? What's natural about killing your own baby? Even animals don't do that. A mother animal will protect her child at the cost of her life. She'll risk her life to protect her child, but we become so advanced that now we willingly do it. Isn't there karmic reaction? They don't know about karma. They don't know any of these things. They don't know the laws of nature or God. They don't know that for every action there's a reaction. So you kill your own child, and you have to take birth and be aborted. That's the reaction. This is in the Vedas. So if they know that, then they might think twice, but because they're wallowing in ignorance, and the leaders are, as you said, teaching this. It's a crazy age. Luckily, the Krishna consciousness is there to save us.
Could you explain about subtle sex desires? There's something like not just
Profit, adoration, and distinction are subtle sex desires.
Are they also as dangerous?
Shouldn't we be sending kids upstairs or something if you guys want to talk about that? I mean, the kids from 4-year-old to 18-year-old, is that?
It's transcendental. They should be learning. This is what they're supposed to learn at the Gurukula. This is the point. In India, it was thought that you're not supposed to discuss these things. And Prabhupada discussed them. And some Indian persons objected, that shouldn't this be kept silent and away from them. But actually we're teaching how to avoid it, not to indulge it. He's just pointing out what they teach in the schools. They're saying indulge. So you're sending your children to schools where they teach them all these things, how to indulge unrestrictedly. And we won't even discuss what they do and what they teach. So if you want them to receive that one-sided education, then that's all right. But if you want them to receive the other, the transcendental side, the Vedic side, then it's not it. In the Brahmacharya, the Gurukula, they teach them that these things are not necessary. That this is not the purpose of life. They teach them how to love Krishna and to devote the Brahmacharya. Some of them remain Brahmachari for their whole life. And even those that don't, they become responsible grihastas, and they know that it's meant for using this power is meant for producing Krishna conscious children. So yes, we're not in favor of discussing it in like they do in the schools, where it becomes actually an impetus for improper behavior. But we're discussing it in an objective way so that we learn that what the purpose of life is. The purpose of life is to love Krishna. But any other questions? Okay. So next. Okay, we can have a little kirtan. Harmonium.